Friends, how are you? Welcome in your science class with me, Dr. Shaimaa Hamdy Kassem, and your channel, the Big Sister channel. As now, we will study lesson 2 from concept 3, unit 1. So, are you ready? Let's start. We already know that the energy flows from one living organism to another in the food web. As each living organism feed on another living organism, so the energy flow from one living organism to another. Here I want to ask you, there is a living organism that colored as yellow. So what do you think? This is rabbit or another living organism that looks like the rabbit? Okay, we will see now. Yes, it looks like the rabbit, but it has longer ears and it is bigger than the rabbit and has longer legs. Okay, so this is rabbit or hare. Yes, this is called hare. Okay, it looks like the rabbit and it eats grass like rabbit. This is for you, as if you see this word hare, you know what is this animal. Okay, so now let's see a food web. Here we have this food web. It begins with the grasses, as we know that the food web or food chain, both of them begin with grasses or plant. Why? Because grasses, plant, those are producers. They produce their own food using the sunlight energy. So here the energy starts from the sun. So the sun is the main source of energy. Then these grasses can be eaten by even rabbit, mouse, or grasshopper. So these animals are primary consumers. And then they may be eaten by owl, or like the grasshopper may be eaten by the frog or the bird. So owl, frog, bird are secondary consumers, and the reason because they eat or feed on primary consumers. And then we have the snake, which is the tertiary consumer because it eats the secondary consumer. Also the hawk here is a tertiary consumer and a top predator. So we want to talk about the energy flow. So it is clear that the energy flow from the producer to the primary consumers, to the secondary consumers, and then to the tertiary consumers. And as a hawk dies, what will happen? Yes, the decomposers will decompose the body of the hawk, and the nutrients will return back to the ecosystem. Here from this food web, we noticed what? Yes, when a predator feeds on a prey, what happens? It gains energy. What is the meaning? Gains means takes energy. So they get their energy from feeding on other living organisms. So here, the predator gains energy from the prey. And that means also that the energy transfers from the prey to the predator. This is a very important point, as the energy transfers from the prey, the animal that is eaten or hunted by other animal. So the energy transfers from the prey to the predator, the animal that eats and hunts other animals. So here, energy transfers from the prey to the predator, and the predator gain energy from the prey. Here for more explanation, as here we have two pictures. Here the energy transfers from this poor rabbit to the eagle or hawk. Okay, so it transfers from the prey to the predator, or the predator, which is the eagle, gains energy from the rabbit, which is the prey. Another picture, as the rabbit may be eaten by the snake. Okay, so here the energy transfers from the rabbit to the snake, from the prey to the predator, as the predator gets energy from the rabbit, which is the prey. Here we have an important note that the energy in an ecosystem remains the same. Even the energy transfers from one living organism to another, but in the ecosystem it remains the same. And this is why, although the energy transferred between living organisms, most of this energy is recycled by the decomposers back into this ecosystem, as after these living organisms they die, okay, and then there are decomposers that decompose their bodies, okay, and return back the nutrients to the ecosystem. So this is why the energy remains the same in the ecosystem. I hope this point is clear for you. Here by pictures, as those animals, the rabbit, grasshopper, mouse, eat grass, so they get energy from the grass. The energy transfers from the grass to them, and then they are eaten by many animals like owl, like fox, like eagle, so or hawk. So the energy transfers to those animals. After a hawk dies, for example, what happens? Yes, there are decomposers that decompose their bodies and return back the nutrients to the ecosystem. So the energy remains the same in the ecosystem. Here we will study activity 5, desert food web. And in this activity, we will see if there is a change in the ecosystem. So what happens to the food web? Will it be affected by this change or no? So here, the famous food web, example for food web, as here we have grasses that eaten by some animals like rabbit and mouse. Okay, so the question here, what happens if all grass is removed from this ecosystem? What will happen to the rabbit? Yes, we know that rabbit feed on grasses, so they gain their energy from the grasses. If there is no grasses, so they will die or they will move to another place, another area. Okay, so here, if it can't find food, so it will die or move to another area. So here we will see the effect of if all grasses removed, what will happen to the eagle? This is another animal that found in this food web, and it eats mouse, snake, and rabbit. So as the rabbit affected by the removal of the grass and they die or they move to another place. So here the eagle at the beginning will not be affected because there are another source of food like mice and snakes. But after a while it will get less food. Okay, so here the eagle will get less food because there is no rabbits that they feed on them. Okay, so we noticed here that if there is a change in the ecosystem, it will affect the food web. Here we have activity 6, which is population changes. So what the meaning of the word population? Here we have a picture or video that we see here, some zebras. Can you count them? Yes, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 or 6 zebras in this area. So this is the population. The number of these species, okay, this type of animals, okay. Here is another example. If we know the number of those fish in this area, okay, so this is the population of this species or kind of animal, which is fish. So simply the definition of population, it is the number of organisms of one type of species living in an area. So this is a number of species, one type of species living in an area. So here I want you to think, what is the meaning of population changes? Yes, yes. Population changes is the change in the number of one species of organisms. As the number of these species changes, even by increasing or decreasing. Okay? And here we have an important part. Changes in the population of one species affects the population of other species. As if one species change in its number, as they decrease in number or they increase in number, this will affect the other species. Why? This is because all species depend on each other. All organisms depend on each other, as we saw in the food web. So if one is affected by increasing or decreasing, so all the others will be affected. And for this information, we have an example. We will see microorganisms and seabird. As microorganisms are tiny that can't be seen with our eyes. So those are very tiny organisms. So from here it comes micro. Micro means very, very small. Microorganisms. Okay? So the very important information about them, that they are producers in the marine food web. So in the marine food web, in the oceans and seas, okay, they are producers. So from here we know that they make their own food. Yes. Another important information about the microorganisms, they are found in cold water habitats. They need cold water to survive, so they can't live in warm water. This is a very important information because we will see after a while. So they are producers and they need cold water. They float on the surface of water and fish feed on them. Okay, small fish feed on them. So what is the seabird? Seabird is a bird that feed on small fish. This is the main source of food for the seabird, and they build their nests on the mountains, cliffs, and they dive into the sea and catch small fish. So the question here, what happens to the microorganisms if the climate changes and the water becomes warm? Yes, they will move to another area or place or ecosystem. Why? Because they need cold water to survive. So microorganisms will move toward an area where the water is cooler, it's cold, okay? So here the population of the organisms will decrease, yes. The number of the microorganisms will decrease. And then the small fish that feed on them will move toward another place because there is no enough microorganisms here. So here the small fish will affected by the population change of the microorganisms. So also the population of the species of the small fish will decrease. And when the seabirds don't have a food source, some will move to other habitat and some will die. So here also the population of the seabird will decrease. From here we notice that if the population change for one species, so it will affect all the other species. So when the climate changes, as it becomes more hot or more cold, this will affect the population of a species. So this may be suitable, okay, as it is good for the species, they can live in this climate, so the population of these species will increase. Yes, but if these climate changes are unsuitable, means bad for the species, they can't live in this climate, so what will happen? The population of species decreases. So here we have the climate changes may be suitable for the species, so the population of a species increases, or these climate changes are unsuitable, so the population of the species decreases. With this information, we have finished our lesson, so don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my channel. Thank you for watching. See you next video, inshallah, and goodbye.